Next up, we have our student guest, Kyle Lang. He won a Dale grant this summer to run over 3,000 miles from coast to coast. Of course, most of that grant money was spent on energy bars and Lululemon gear. Welcome out, Kyle. Thank you so much for being with us today. First, can you just explain this project that you undertook and how you spent your summer a little bit?
Yeah. So this summer I had the opportunity to run just over 3,000 miles across America from Washington State to Coney Island, New York. I averaged about 40 miles a day and raised about $23,000 for 3 different nonprofits along the way.
Cool. And what were those nonprofits?
One was I did a PICS internship in Minnesota with a place that works a lot with the school district. And then in my hometown, I raised money for United Way. And then locally at Princeton, I raised money for Special Olympics New Jersey.
And how did you survive this journey, food and sleep and the Maslow's hierarchy of needs kind of thing?
Well, I was supposed to get about 8,000 to 10,000 calories a day. I did not do that. I got about 5,000 calories a day, so I ended up losing about 20 pounds. But essentially, if I wasn't running, I was either eating or sleeping. And a lot of people who run across America only average 4 to 5 hours of sleep each night. I was fortunate enough to be able to get 7 to 8 hours, so I prioritized sleep. And I think that did wonders in allowing me to finish.
And was anyone else on this trip with you?
My parents and my support crew. So we had a camper that we rented for the first half of summer. My parents would drive ahead a couple miles, wait for me to catch up, give me food, something to drink, and then we would spend the night, sometimes literally on the side of the road, wherever we finished, in a church parking lot, a Walmart parking lot, in someone's random driveway. And then the second half of summer, we just had a U-Haul that we carried all of our supplies in, and then we spent the night either in hotels or with people that we knew along the way.
So note to my parents, whoever complained about picking me up from rehearsal, his parents drove with him across the country. What kind of thing did you do while you ran to entertain yourself?
Yeah. So one of the big reasons behind the run was offering it for different intentions. So I encourage people to submit different mile intentions, things that they're going through in life, whether it's the health of a friend's parent, someone they know that's struggling with loneliness. And then along the miles, especially the difficult miles, I could pray over those intentions while I ran. Just a way to make my running about something more than myself, and that was really meaningful to me along the way.
Did you listen to music or audiobooks or anything?
I tried. I've never listened to music while I run, and I'm this summer I'm literally running all day, so I can get 30 of the classics done. So the first couple days I started listening to War and Peace. Started. After 2 days, I found that I couldn't focus on anything going on in my head, so I just ditched the headphones and ran the rest of the way with my own thoughts. Sometimes I was able to call my friends, chat with them along the way, call my grandparents and let them talk to me. That was cool.
So obviously this was very physically taxing on your body. What was the biggest medical issue you ran into during the trip?
Day 7, I was forced to go into the hospital. I developed shin splints really early on in my right leg. And I think that was a matter of my body saying, what are you doing? You shouldn't be doing this. You should stop. And how it tried to get me to stop was by getting injured. So I got shin splints early on, but I thought I could push to the breaking point. Eventually I broke. Went into the doctor, and I felt so bad for the doctor. Because he knows I'm not going to listen to anything he says. What can he prescribe? Rest. And my rest is doing 20 miles a day. So went to the doctor.
Yeah, me too.
And then was forced to take a day off, but we made it.
And so that day, you ran 0 miles. What was your biggest push of a day?
The third to last day, I was in New Jersey, and I was able to cover 60 miles.
So obviously you covered a lot of the U.S. here. Did you encounter any interesting people as you were running?
One of the stories I like to tell, middle of nowhere, Montana, running along, it's 95, 100 degrees. I'm running on the left side of the road. I hear, "What are you doing out here, man?" I turn to my right, and there's this guy on a bike. And I'm thinking to myself, how do I answer that question? So the first thing that comes to mind was, I'm just headed to New York. And he's like, no way, that's so cool. And we chat for like 2.5 miles. He's biking along as I'm running. And it turns out this guy, his name is Kurt, he was biking from Portland, Oregon to Minneapolis, averaging like 130 miles a day. And this is the 13th time that he's made that trip. So just meeting really, really random and cool people that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet otherwise was awesome.
Wow, yeah. And then what was, you mentioned other people who have done this trip before. Is there like a club for that, or are you guys in a group me? Like
there is technically a Facebook group called USA Crossers. Some people have averaged like 50, 60 miles a day. Others have just like walked across. But there's technically a group of crazy people out there doing that.
And what for you was the toughest part of this trip? Like, what kind of terrain was the worst on you, or your favorite to run?
Yeah. Of course, the Rockies, a lot of people say, was crossing the Rockies the worst.
Yeah.
Of course, it was difficult. But for me, the worst part was Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Quakers.
Yeah, but mostly because we had just been treated to the nice flat of Indiana and Ohio, and then we get into the steep rolling hills of Pennsylvania, and it's not like the Rockies where you're running 11 miles straight up and you can get into some sort of a rhythm, even though it's a slow rhythm. It's like a 1/4 mile straight up, 1/2 mile straight down. You just can't get into any sort of rhythm. And at that point, everyone's saying, you're almost done, you're almost done. And yes, I'm almost done, but it means, almost done means 600 miles to go. Waking up every day and covering 40 miles, that was tough to get my head around.
Wow. Well, that's such a cool project. Everyone give it up for Kyle.